Hello. So there are many health practices, and several of them are to help us be able to be functioning better, have a better balance, be aware enough, hopefully even be in the present moment, so that we can do our activities of daily living with least problem, with least tensions. Now, in the range of what can be aware of, yeah, and what is also called as health, is the range, let's say, between, say, 0 and 10, where 0 is um, no problem and 10 is max problem. Yeah. And if you're going to say in terms of unconditional love on one end and unconditional hate on the other end, then we are seeing a range that is in some way hinged across, let's say, love. Now, love may be a topic that may eke someone out and say, we don't talk about that. Or it may be something that because of shyness or because it's not, it's for the romantic with the pink eyed, and it's not scientific, or it's for the artistic turn of mind, just like spirituality or religion. And those may be some of the thought lines for those who may not be thinking in terms of particles or waves or energy, or to do actual work, which is not gooey, but more objectively looked at matter than subjectively. So, love may be amongst those topics which is more subjectively appreciated than objectively. But that also makes life a little less lackluster or not as colorful, beautiful as it could be, unless you can dissect the word beauty into structure and composition, and you can do something with the parts, which is also how life gets mechanical. And then there's a range between sickness and disease, between comfort and ease, between um, objective and subjective appreciation of the matter, of any matter. And health gets affected by how objectively versus subjectively we appreciate not just life, our human body, our different topics of interest across different boundaries, across professional spheres of influence, across the food we eat, for example, food for information, food for thought, and how we appreciate bits of information that also goes into a stomach in the course of our everyday activities of daily living. Now, some of the bits of information is not necessarily going through our stomach, but through listened audio, video, for example, like this, or through text read. So the information is going in through our eyes or ears or nose or even the skin where you feel in sensation, pain, for example, or, excuse me, temperature variations, and by which our nervous system gets informed by, well, bits of information. And then how is it processed is also how health may be appreciated without overwhelm, where a computer processor could get overwhelmed with how much of load is required of it and then could heat up. And so would our human body when there is a load of information, and there needs to be a certain moderation such that performance continues without shutdown or the engine heating up. And then you would need to take time off to just cool down. Now, some of that range of information is the ease versus tension about the region of our head. Now, a lot of people may not be able to feel their head, the top of their head, or different areas about, for example, can you feel the hair on your head without touching it? But there is also this popular notion that you can't feel inside your brain. The brain is one organ that does not have sensory faculties like the rest of the body. And so you cannot feel what's happening in your brain, though the brain is designed for processing information, including the experience of pain in other parts of the body. Now, over the years of facilitating health clinically, I noticed that a lot of people have a difficulty feeling their body. For example, many can't feel their heartbeat because it's a different set of sensory faculties for interoception to be able to feel inside the body. But and so is the brain. There may have been studies about checking for sensory faculties in the brain, but fluids are certain kind of tissues, which blood, for example, um, has cells and also has a tension. When there is, say, congestion in some part of the body, you would feel the pressure of it. And if there is, say, fluid buildup and hydrocephalus, for example, you would feel a little off. But you're feeling that off because when there is blood-brain barrier, and then there is arteries and nerves, and skin by which pressure is also appreciated. What we pay attention to, say, for example, in our hands, in our abdomen, in our chest, thoracic area, or um, feet, for example, people who have diabetic neuropathy cannot feel their feet. So our difficulty in being able to feel the brain is because of some form of neuropathy, or it's just something to think about. So, what we are aware of sometimes could also be pain. Some people are not able to feel pain. And so, when they are faced with the trouble, they don't know they are, for example, have been cut because they can't feel pain. That's a pathological condition. But when we are not aware of, say, a discomfort in the abdomen region, and that continues for so long that it becomes a pathological condition to be worried about. If so, then awareness plays a role in maintaining health, wealth, and wisdom. From the paradigm of thought that protection of health is better than prevention of diseases, is better than cure. And awareness in terms of consciousness, where there is conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and supraconscious processes. And not being aware of these processes that are already part of what makes human healthy enough, aware enough to be mindful of what needs to be minded. For example, minding your own business. When you don't know the range of what you need to be mindful about, there could be suboptimal maintenance of necessary faculties. Similarly, the health of your body. And the range of what makes human range of consciousness versus, say, animals or plants makes for a paradigm of thinking on what health is and what do we need to be aware of and what do we need to be mindful of and what do we need to be appreciative of when human faculties also move between past, present, and future concerns, something which gives rise to prediction models. We tend to predict the future and then act in the present according to what has been predicted. Now, if the math is off and your predictions are off, you would be planning for doomsday when the simple fact is your calculations have been off. You have not considered sufficient variables, and so you have predicted doomsday. And then you're functioning from survival, protection, or behavior patterns which may seem pathological out of context, except that your worldview is giving rise to the predictions you made, which is then giving rise to the actions you take in the present, which may seem suboptimal, not sufficient, or at least causing dis-ease to others. Or it could seem grandiose. But how then do you assess what is sufficient if you're functioning from doomsday thought lines or grandiosity? Would also make for a fine logic, a reason for what is sufficient thinking, what is sufficient logic, how much is the present moment appreciated in terms of risk versus benefit, in terms of opportunity versus threat, SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, threat, but also by which choices are being made, and how ecological, how economical is it in light of present situations, and how much may it be from projections for what we could do when the present moment requires other details to be paid attention to. So we have long-term plans and short-term plans, but what we work on at this point in time is also then gives rise to those fine details that makes a difference in which road we take and how, what we do and how we get there and who all would be with us. So that's also part of planning, but there's also part of how you go about your activities of daily life, from doomsday thought or from grandiosity, and what's the balance that has us be on earth versus heaven or hell. Something that earth has been mastering, doing quite well since some time, while other planets are still figuring out what it means to have life, or what is possible from being part of the family, and learning from each other, and then what becomes possible from life, having health, and then what's the what's your imagination, what's your vision by which you're functioning, and how feasible is it, and how well do all of us get to benefit from functioning from these thought lines, and what thought lines are they, are they shareable, are are we curious enough to know what earth has been doing since some time, for example, what life has been doing, why are we in existence, why are humans formed, and how can we, now that we have a body that's human, contribute to what earth, life, the solar system, family system, lots of fractals, this whole system called the universe, why it has been made, and what roles do humans have to play in the whole scheme of things. Some of the thought lines which could be good enough to pause and to have a little thought on what could you do at this point in time to then forward the conversation, if this is of interest. Thank you so much for your kind interest. I hope this has been of value to you, or at least inspire a thought well enough to write or to type in the comment, and we could continue the conversation in what direction it could take. Good day.